Good evening. I'm Andy Thayer with the Gay Liberation Network, and with me today is Vicky Cervantes from La Voz de la Abajos. Am I saying that correct, Vicky?
La voz de los de abajo.
Thank you. And before anyone says anything, did I get punched out or anything? No, it's a little medical issue, and unlike the, like the Nixon-Kennedy debates, we don't use makeup here at CAN TV, so you get what you see, and that's it. But as you saw in our opening there, today that we're going to be talking about the 6th anniversary of the Iraq invasion that is coming up in March. And there are a number of events that Vicky has been very involved with organizing, other folks who've been involved in the Pilsen neighborhood that we wanted to talk to about. And so, Vicky, tell us what's going on in March in Chicago on the 6th anniversary of the Iraq invasion.
Right. This year, the citywide march to protest 6 years of war, the occupations of Iraq, Afghanistan, and also Palestine, which we'll talk a little bit more about, and the war against immigrants that's been ongoing as well, is going to be held in Pilsen and Little Village. And this is really an important thing for those of us who do work in those neighborhoods, because it allows us to bring our community into the citywide movement in a way that sometimes doesn't happen. And it brings the city to us, which doesn't happen that often either. So it's going to be on March 14th, and it's going to be stepping off at Marshall Boulevard in Cermak. There'll be a rally at noon, step off at 1 o'clock, then we're going to march down Cermak into Pilsen and have a rally in Pilsen as well. We think it's really an important thing for those of us who have been doing work against militarization, against the wars, and against discrimination in Pilsen and Little Village. We're really excited about it.
And this isn't just an anti-war event. It's also specifically talking about how immigrants particularly are being scapegoated in the current economic crisis. For those who are not aware, there have been any number of raids on workplaces where immigrants are working in. The ironic thing about this is, of course, the United States, which has spent so many billions of dollars to impose unfair trade agreements with other countries, to install dictators using U.S. military if necessary. Well, what goes around comes around. Working people in those countries want to make a decent standard of living just as working people in this country do. And so people come to the United States. They try and make a way for their families. And
we see it that the same policies, economic, military, international policies that the United States carries out that lead to the wars also lead to conditions being unbearable for people in their own countries, especially, really it's worldwide. In our neighborhoods, we see it from Central America, Mexico, South America. People come not because they want to leave their families behind, their countries, everything behind, but because the economic and social conditions are so bad, they have no choice if they want to make a better life for their family.
Well, and for those who have seen our show in the past, the Gay Liberation Network is an organization which focuses primarily on equal rights for LGBT people, but we're not a gay rights-only organization. But Vicky, we're talking about why should people be protesting against the Iraq occupation? We're told that this occupation is going to end. What's going on here?
Well, I think the thing to look at is now more than ever, it's really important that we make our voices heard, that we want an absolute end to the war and occupation in Iraq and in Afghanistan. We need to really be careful, those of us who have been doing this work for a long time, that we don't think that just because an announcement is made that troops are going to be withdrawn from Iraq, that ends the occupation in Iraq, because we need to make sure that we're ending the total occupation. Contractors are being withdrawn, all the military, and that the people of Iraq are being allowed to work out their own self-determination, their own destiny in their own country. Also, we don't want to see the troops just go from Iraq over to Afghanistan and enlarge that occupation and that war.
Well, and unfortunately, President Obama has been parsing his words very carefully about this, and it's important to listen very carefully. He is a former attorney, after all, and watch out, because he talks about removing combat troops.
Right.
Why the adjective? I mean, we've had troops occupying South Korea for decades and Japan for decades,
Right.
so is that really the kind of situation we want in Iraq as well? Do the Iraqi people want that? Much more importantly, it's their country. Shouldn't they have the right to determine
Right.
whether or not foreign troops are on their soil? And the fact is that poll after poll of the Iraqi populace has said no, they do not want U.S. troops in any guise. They do not want the private contractors.
I think they've made it very clear in all the polls and elections.
Yes, caller, you're on CAN TV. What's your question or comment, please?
Hi,
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Just fine, thank you.
This is Amy from CCAWR, and I was just calling to thank GLN for putting this march on the air tonight and advertising for it. And I have a question about if there's going to be any transit provided for people coming from church groups or suburbs or other neighborhoods that aren't a part of Pilsen or Little Village.
Well, I know for a fact that an organization of Muslims, I believe it's American Muslims for Palestine, is organizing perhaps as many 50 buses according to their national staff member. And so those buses will be going from around the suburbs. We're also encouraging different organizations around the whole Chicagoland area to organize buses. Unfortunately, both the starting point of the march as well as the terminus up in Pilsen are just a handful of blocks away from CTAL lines. So fortunately, it is very accessible for folks on both ends, and we'll be getting the transportation information up on the web very shortly.
They're both stops on the pink line, just in case you want it. The 18th Street stop is down close to where the march is going to end, and the California Street stop where it's going to start.
Well, and just to remind people, the march that we're talking about is on Saturday, March 14th at 12 noon at Marshall Boulevard and Cermak Road. That's right near the California stop, as Vicki was saying. And just wanted to pull up a few other graphics of other things, past marches. Most of these are on the anniversary of the Iraq invasion. The one that you see up on your screen there, you think it's cold today. It was about 10 degrees when we were out there on January 11th, 2003. What we're going through right now is pretty balmy compared to that. This is another protest at Federal Plaza. Another big protest, people just flooding the downtown in that instance. And you see people not terribly pleased with Bush. This particular scene here, I think, is important. You see the Reverend Paul Jakes Jr. there addressing the Devon Avenue March on February 15th, 2003. That was the day of the world's largest ever protests. The protests, there have never been larger protests on any issue around the world on that day. People saying, don't do this invasion. That was our neighborhood march up on Devon Avenue on the far north side of the city, and thousands of people came out. So holding a neighborhood march as a citywide march, I think it shows that it can be done. It was miserably cold that day, but we survived. And this particular photo I like because it shows the Gay Liberation Network under our predecessor named Chicago Anti-Bashing Network, and that shows us on Lakeshore Drive. That was on the opening night of the war, as some 15,000 people flooded up Lakeshore Drive here, and there's our banner right there. And that was a great event, and certainly sent a message that many thousands and thousands of people in this country were not pleased about this war. And there again, here we got the information. It's end the occupations now, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Palestine. Stop the government's war on immigrants. And again, the specific information about where you need to go. Saturday, March 14th, 12 noon, Marshall Boulevard and Cermak Road. Again, this has been Andy Thayer with Vicky Cervantes. Thanks for watching tonight, and we'll see you again on Friday, February 13th. Take care.